Welcome back to another episode of Live Bold and Boss Up. It's your girls, Steph and Ash. And today we chat with David Kahn. He is the president owner of Bespoke and Company. They do amazing tailor-made suits, shirts, jeans, pants, the whole nine yards. Really, really beautifully made. And he shares with us, after 2020, kind of no one knew what the heck to wear to interviews anymore, to whether that's video or in person or just really just different events, right?
People forgot how to dress.
So he shares with us, hey, what's the style, what's in, how to dress for you, and how to dress to feel confident, or whatever it is you're going for, whatever your goal is.
Yeah, there's a lot more that goes into how you look than just looking good. It's about feeling good and being confident, and it's all one total package.
Those vibes. Get those vibes though. Also, we want to share with you guys, we were recording today at the Wave. Thank you to the Wave for having us here. And also thank you so much to DCE Productions for doing our audio recording. We really appreciate you guys. You make it so easy and seamless. And of course, thanks to our Next Path career partners. We love you. We have some really awesome questions, because I know when we chatted earlier and Steph wasn't included, but I've kind of filled her in. And I thought it was the perfect opportunity for us to talk about both of our companies, right? They absolutely go together. When you're interviewing, you need to look your best. You provide this beautiful, luxurious, custom-made clothing, right? And you probably see it all the time where people are getting things made specifically for job interviews, I would assume, sure. Right? And I just thought, what a great way to connect us even more.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And I see people out and about. I was at an event and the mayor was there, and she's like, David, don't judge me. And I'm like, it's too late. It's too late for that. I mean, I see, because I like to evaluate things, or when I'm watching television, I look at things because I want to see how I can make my clients better. And I talk to people, and my kind of first question is, who's your audience? What are you here to accomplish? And try to really get to the root of it. And I've done enough work with enough different people that I have a pretty decent understanding, whether it's for school or professional or more social, just having an understanding of that. And then knowing, the economics of scale, what people can afford. And we have quite a variety of different price points with our custom clothing. So I can kind of hone in on what I think is going to appeal to somebody.
Nice.
So, but yeah, the first impressions it's paramount.
Yeah. Yes. Which is what you deal with in job interviews. It's, you don't want to read a book by its cover, but in interviews you have to. You only have how many minutes or hours with this person to decide, do you want them on your team or not? So you need to put your best foot forward.
Absolutely. And it's funny, a client yesterday who's in the banking world posted something on his social media about, let's stop dressing like we're on a Zoom call, through the pandemic. And it's been such an evolution since then. And it got weird because I think people lost some identity, being behind a computer screen as opposed to in person. And my wife, who's in the HR world, but she's worked for a company that was remote prior to the pandemic. So it's just different, but it's and she and I talk about it. It's like that around the water cooler or happy hour after work when you're in a professional setting and you want to look great.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just talking prior to coming in, we all got drenched in the rain. So we're thinking about, looking good, but then, there are elements that change that even throughout the day.
Right.
And we focus on that. So
did you find that the style of clothing has changed after 2020?
100%.
And in what way?
Yeah. So I think things have just gotten more casual to begin with. We live in Florida, so our, wardrobes and clothing are determined by the weather and our geography, but we're showing much more, I'll use use the brand Lululemon. So, their fabrics are more stretchy, more performance. And so now we're making tailored clothing, specifically suits and professional clothing, out of those fabrics. And it's bizarre for me, because I'm not very casual, but my clients love it. I mean, to be on an airplane with a 4-way stretch pant, and you don't even feel it anymore, is pretty cool. So it's been a good selling point.
I know you're like,
I know.
okay, she's about to say something again. I'm just picturing the material that I do see in Lululemon, that right, that we all have, and then how do you make that into a suit? That's got to be the most comfortable, good looking suit ever.
Certainly.
Right?
Yeah. Well, if you have the right pattern and you know what your style preferences are, you can really make anything. You can make it out of paper if you want, if you have the right people to sew it. And the majority of our clothing is handmade in Italy. And we do beautiful men's and women's clothing. But stretch has just been such a huge. So with women's, we've had to do stretch in women's, especially pants, for forever. So you guys are used to it, and then stretch jeans, and men resisted that for the longest time. But then we're kind of forced into it a little bit more, and so now it's like, it's a requirement.
Right.
So it was very comfortable. So
I was just gonna say, my husband, he has bought some of that material, like Lululemon type of clothes that could be workout pants, or they could be work pants, and he wears them to work with a nice polo. And it's amazing because they're so versatile, but they're so comfortable. So now it's like you almost can't go back to like your normal work pants or like the jeans that are like so stiff, because you're so used to comfort now.
Exactly.
Right.
And you make that the stylish but comfortable.
Yeah. And in our classic fabrics, we're doing more stretch or natural stretch. It doesn't mimic those fabrics, but it gives you a little bit more comfort.
Yeah.
So a little better balance.
Can you wear those on a job interview? What do you think?
Yeah, you can't even tell.
So?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be the right color or pattern.
Right.
And what we're showing now are traditional solids. I know we keep saying Lululemon. Good.
Oh my God.
Pay us for this ad. I mean, I know, right? But if you go in there, everything is like dark navy or black or gray. It's very, very classic. And that's typically what we do. I've done some beach weddings where we have white or like a stone color. So it's very, very light and Florida-esque, or for more summer wear. It's pretty classic, pretty plain.
Okay.
Can you share how luxury clothing or how looking your best can affect or influence someone's like self-esteem whenever you're walking in to an interview or your first day of work? Like, it's not just about like how you look, but it's about the way you feel as well.
Totally. I had a client, an attorney client, who was a partner in a firm in Orlando, and he dubbed it the confidence suit. So there's a level of confidence that you exude, when you look good, and being a part of the design process is really cool, because you actually get to pick your linings and threads and buttons and everything. But having something that's custom made that fits you the way that it's supposed to, it's a game changer. It really is. But you exude a level of confidence, and in an interview or in a business meeting, or with your boss or with a spouse, wherever you are, or again, socially going out on a first date, you feel so great and you look so great that, that's definitely true in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, I love that.
Are there specific colors, or maybe the better question is, what do colors say about the individual, right? Because like you just said, you get to pick out the lining and the buttons. What about the color? There's very specific meanings behind certain colors.
True.
Right?
It's funny. Earlier in my career, people going and having their colors done was a really big thing. Well, apparently that's back because it's been kind of a buzz with clients of mine. And, and I respect the people that do those colors, but it should be a guideline and not necessarily gospel. This is all you can wear. So basically they look at your skin tones, your hair color, your eye color, and those are colors that complement against your skin or against your face. But if you're wearing a shirt that fits those colors. You can wear a jacket that doesn't necessarily fit those guidelines because it's not right against your skin. So there needs to be a balance with colors. I had someone in just earlier this morning, and he was looking at a couple of things. Sport jackets for men now are really popular and prevalent in many circumstances. But I try to, if you have something that's pink with a yellow window pane, you're marked. It's that coat again. And they'll see you coming and going. So I try to be cautious and build on a foundation that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, if it's a themed event or we do some corporate things. I did something recently with a corporation, and they did these. It's kind of like a President's Club where they did the same jacket for all of their employees. Had an embroidered patch put in. It was really a cool thing, but it was a nice neutral thing. It reflected their corporate colors, and it worked. So I try to be cautious, and I do ask questions to know what someone already has in their wardrobe to make sure that we're doing something that complements. But, you talk about in an interview, you're not going to wear a pink suit to an interview.
Right.
I mean, a woman might,
You could,
but I would still caution. And it depends on what the industry is, so.
I think that's a good point too. It depends on what industry are you
Right.
going into the interview for, right? Because
if it's something more conservative, probably not.
you need to be
Or
aware.
if it's something more creative, it might not be
Right.
bad.
Right. Yeah. And another guideline too is knowing that industry. There are some industries that are more conservative than others, and you don't want to look better than your interviewer. So the banking industry has always been notorious for that. People that are working in that industry and knowing who is above you, you don't want to outdo them. And now,
This is a great comment that you made, because I have not heard that, nor have I thought about that.
So I spent most of my career in New York City. And so in bigger cities, it's, very conservative. It's become a little more playful. But with, you see a lot of young guys, and they're wearing their pants high and tight and their jackets up to their waist, and it's really progressive, not necessarily appropriate for all professions. But growing up in a more metropolitan area, I learned some of those things and those guidelines by working with a lot of different professions. But there are those that definitely have more guidelines or requirements in some instances. They have to really be careful of.
I like that, knowing who the hiring manager is and not outdoing them. I didn't ever think of that, but I guess, you don't want to rub them the wrong way, right?
Right, exactly.
I feel like the whole ankle showing thing, no socks, is a thing too. Like, do you do that? Do you not do that? What's your...
I sell socks, so I'm not going to not wear socks. I mean, that's just foolish. I see that in my industry, and I see these guys that own retail stores, and they're walking around without socks on, and they have those ghost socks or like ped style socks, which are okay, but I have skinny bony ankles, so I don't care to show mine to anybody. But I don't know. I that's just, it's not a thing for me. I like socks as an accessory to complement an outfit also. But I'm not saying that's in an interview, I wouldn't do that.
Right. It's a little bold.
Yeah, it's a little bold. But I think that, if it's part of your regular daily style of dress, then that's perfectly accepessible.
I have a personal question, and this is I'm in.
Starting out with
Here comes the zinger.
Because this is something I think about a lot, and obviously we live in Florida, so women wear, especially just in the office, a lot of like tank tops or like sleeveless or even like one shoulder stuff like that. Is that, I'm assuming that's probably not appropriate in an interview. And then is it appropriate just every day to work? Like, what should we wear a jacket?
She's wearing spaghetti straps.
Yeah,
if you're not watching
so
YouTube.
I think anything that's tastefully done is okay. And again, you know your environment, you know who you're working for. If you work for a more progressive company, whether it's in IT or something in creative, then I think you can be more creative. If you're working for, Raymond James or a law firm that, you need to be a little bit more tasteful, then it should reflect that. So I have between my wife and I, we have 5 kids and 3 are girls. And oh my gosh, what these girls are wearing, these young girls, is like, I love you girls, but it can be real hoochie. Like they have homecoming this weekend, and it's like, at school they have guidelines. The skirts have to be a certain distance from their knees, and the V opening of their tops have to be at a certain level. And I think that should reflect in their social life relative to school. When they're out on their own, it's not such a big deal. Then they're wearing t-shirts and, but I think we learn from that. And I look at, what some women wear, and I just think it's provocative. And I try to protect my kids, especially teenagers. So do you want them to be looking provocative? And I'm a male, so I know what I look at, and I'm pretty sure most of my contemporaries are the same. But I don't want to look at, a 20-something-year-old in that vein. It's just so, and not to be prudish, but I think it's a time and a place. But I'm open to, to all different styles. Again, just appropriate to where you are and who you're appealing to.
What about in a Zoom meeting, like I'm meeting a client for the first time and I have like a spaghetti strap on. I had a Zoom meeting this morning and I was wearing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
interviewer or the interviewee?
Well, it was some like HR managers from a company, and I was meeting one of them for the first time. He was a guy, and I had this on, and then as I was sitting there in the Zoom meeting, I'm like, maybe I should have put a jacket on, and that thought crossed my mind. But I'm like, I'm at my house, I'm in front of the computer, but again, I feel like that's how we start thinking. We're at home, we can dress more casual.
You're more comfortable,
right?
Yeah. And we let in with that is that, like, during COVID, people were behind a screen, and it's very different when you're in front of someone or you're standing in an office and you've got someone right on the other side of your desk. I think it changes.
Right.
You have long hair, so you can, fix your hair to cover. But, for a woman that's real busty and has her cleavage coming out, then I would say, maybe that's not the most appropriate. So you have to know your body and what your limits are. But again, anything that's dressy and tastefully done, I think is okay. And, sex sells. It's just the way that it is. So I think, I'll get hate mail for this, but I think women have an advantage that way. Again, my wife being in HR, and we have these conversations all the time about equality and gender and those things. And I'm completely open to that. Having 2 boys and 3 girls, we try to educate them, in similar ways, but I try to be protective of that too. And I do that with my clients as well. So our women's business has been growing pretty dramatically. And I have women in all shapes and sizes that come to me specifically because it's really difficult to find things off the rack. If you're really tiny and petite, impossible. If you're, 5'10", 5'11", it's, you can't find pants long enough. So, and then more curvy women, it's difficult. So, sorry, Nicole, I'm going to use my wife as an example again, but she was in a Zoom meeting and she was wearing a shirt and she came out and was unbuttoned right at the bust. And I like, is that how you were dressed in your meeting? So I made her some shirts that some custom shirts, because a woman who is a little bit more curvy there, it's hard to find something that fits accordingly or appropriately.
I literally just had that issue today because I just literally was telling Steph this morning, this is a non-stretchy top. And so I had my bra on, and of course, like that, gives you less space there. And their buttons were just like, help me, trying to hold on. So I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? Because obviously we're doing a Zoom, like video thing today, and I have other meetings. So I'm like, okay, thankfully I had a bodysuit that I could put on and take off my bra. This is way too much information for podcast, but I had to do that because I'm like, I need to button the buttons
good information.
And not have them.
Yeah, someone that's in an interview and may have something like that in their car or in their bag. There are remedies for situations like this. So it's actually good to talk about.
Right. It's
real life.
Thank goodness I had a bodysuit on. Otherwise I probably would have, because where do you find pasties, right? For pasties, is that the appropriate word? Like the
something.
We're getting really personal.
Right.
Really personal.
Well, I'll tell you, so wardrobe malfunctions happen. And with men, and I've never had this happen in my career, but I will tell you, in the last year, I've had maybe 4 or 5 instances, and I'm not pointing out my flaws, but guys are wearing their pants really tight. They like a nice, real tight taper, and with that comes a little less mobility. So if you're at a wedding and you're dancing and doing splits, it's probably not the best idea. And even bending over and picking something up can be hazardous. And it's happened. And, you know, I make up for it, and we do what we have to do, but it's educating someone. And I've learned that I need to talk to people ahead of time so they have a better understanding of what to do, what not to do. You know, people ask me how they need to clean their items. Now I have to tell them how they need to wear their items to make sure that they protect the quality.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
wait a minute, who is doing a split? I have more questions.
So it's funny. It's all different ages, shapes, and sizes, but because men want to wear things closer to the body, especially with pants, you just open that margin for error in you know, you're exposed to the elements.
Right.
So tell us, I feel like maybe in the past, whenever you think of custom clothing, the first thing that comes to mind is this is going to be expensive. So there's certain like budget constraints in your head that maybe keeps people from getting tailored clothing. I feel like that's changed maybe in the past, I don't know, few years, or maybe I'm just more aware of it, that there is affordable options. Like, tell us how that works, because it's not all super expensive.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, people hear custom and they think, oh, you know, unaffordable, untouchable. Not necessarily true. I mean, you know, we are probably relative to a higher end department store. So if you shop at a Nordstrom or a Saks or even a Neiman Marcus type of store, you know, we'll be at that level, and oftentimes priced less. So because we're not branded, we are a private label brand, but you know, I don't have Giorgio or Ralph or Hugo or any of those labels. So it becomes more affordable, relatively speaking. And then I have a variety of different collections. So the majority of our clothing's handmade in Italy. But I do work with a couple manufacturers in China for both our men's and women's collections that are a lot more affordable for someone getting married, someone going for their first job interview, or just got out of school, or is on the debate team in college and needs something but can't spend, you know, a ton of money. And within each of those collections, we have luxury fabrics that become more expensive. But you can do a two-piece suit for under $1,000, which I think if you go to a better store, you're going to find that that's probably about a benchmark or average price point. I mean, yeah, there are definitely things in the 2 to 5 range, but it's a totally different quality. And then we can get into, you know, more specifics on how a suit is made and why those prices are different. And there's very specific information around that as well. If you want to get into technology.
Tell us.
So basically, there are 2 ways to make a suit. And even a Hugo Boss or a Giorgio Armani that wants you to be wearing, and not in all of their collections, but they want you in the here and now and on to the next thing in a couple years. So this is not something that they want you to have to last your lifetime necessarily. They're trying to sell more stuff. So you can have a suit that is fused. So it's an adhesive batting or fabric that goes inside the actual fabric with a heat pressed process. It adds structure to the garment. A higher end way of doing that is with a canvas. It's a piece of floating canvas that is actually hand sewn or machine sewn into the garment, again, giving it that same stability, but it's thousands of tiny little stitches as opposed to heated glue.
Right.
So with the first process over years of wearing and dry cleaning, it breaks down.
Okay.
Whereas with the canvas, it stays for a long time. Now the outside fabric can break down if you're wearing the garment, you know, a number of times. But it's so when you're paying someone to sew that process, it's more expensive.
Sure. Yeah.
And you can and there are finer and less fine fusibles that can be used depending upon the level of quality of that manufacturer.
So speaking of all of that, like the different layers and stuff like that, fabrics, favorite fabrics, would it be like the all natural fabrics like cotton and linen and silk, or are there other fabrics that you feel like are popular that are just as good?
Yeah, so we use wool more than anything.
Oh, okay.
And people think wool, okay, wool's heavy. It's not. Wool can be done in a very tropical form. So a very finely woven wool. We add silk, which is very strong, to wool. So if you add a small percentage of silk, you can weave that wool even finer, and then it's even lighter weight. We have something that's a mill called Loro Piana from Italy. They have a royal wishcloth, and it's a really super fine wool, but they add the silk to it, so it adds strength to it. And just beautiful fabrics. When you do that, silk is expensive, so we're going up in price. Like the suit that I have on, which doesn't look too heavy. This is 100% cashmere.
Wow.
So cashmere we think of as very lofty and a wintry fabric, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Okay.
With technology today, the way that they weave fabrics is very different. In the summertime, obviously, but especially in Florida, you had mentioned linens, cottons, things like that. I mean, that's all day long. And depending upon the colors, we go darker in the winter, lighter in the summer. And it really depends on what it is. I mean, for women understand those fabrics a little better. Men don't like wrinkles. And so when you say linen, it's like,
that's really hard to get the wrinkles out, right?
Yeah. So guys just don't like to look disheveled. And so for the most part, and women too, but I think women understand and appreciate those fabrics a little differently. So I don't push them. If someone comes and asks me for them, or they're doing a beach wedding, then I may make a recommendation, but I let them know the nature of those fabrics and what to expect.
I've been really conscious of looking at the fabrics when I buy certain items. Like certain ones, I'm just like, I really like it. I'm in love with it. I'm getting it no matter what the fabric is. But I've been really conscious about what fabric I get. And it's really hard to find really good fabric.
No, that's true. So especially going into a retail store, you're at the mercy of what they have. And a lot of these bigger, not big box, but just the higher end stores have become distribution centers for their online businesses. Which is really sad. Even going like holiday shopping, you go into a store and they just don't have what you need, or they don't have the sizes you need, let alone the fabrics that you like. So, which is a real bonus and luxury of working with someone like me, is that you come in and you tell me, the specific fabrics that you prefer personally, and I go right to those fabrics and I show you a huge variety, and then you can make whatever you want in those fabrics. And of course, we use different weights for different things. If it's a sport jacket or a suit, it's going to be a different weight than something in a blouse or a shell or something like that. So but we do everything. We do silk shells like that, or classic cotton or linen shirts.
I love it. I feel like that could be like a whole nother rabbit hole going into.
It's
Right?
I warn you ahead of time. It becomes very contagious very quickly. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's a game changer. But I try to be respectful and know someone's limitations. And then there are those that never spent as much on the things that they're purchasing, but once they're wearing them and the compliments that they get and the recognition, or I can't guarantee that job interview, but I will say, and I've seen it, the percentages definitely increase,
right?
Because we talked about the confidence level. It's just looking good and looking confident and feeling confident makes a difference in any situation.
100%. How did you come up with Bespoke? How did you get into the custom clothing industry? Was it something that you were always into? How was this born? And
that's a good question. So I always loved clothing. In high school, I worked in a little called them haberdasheries. It was kind of like a Gap type of store that's no longer around. And I went to college in a typical New England town with the main street and the church at the head of the square. And there was this this clothing store there, and they had men's and women's clothing and these beautiful cashmere sport jackets with scarves. And I'm like, I was in love with that. And I would cut class to work because I loved
Wow.
working in the store. And I met one of our sales reps who his company actually sold us the cashmere jackets and things like that. And my first job out of college was with that company, and worked in corporate America for a lot of big stores and big brands. And then moved to Florida. I opened the International Plaza with Hugo Boss at the time. I was a general manager with them. And we had people that came in, and Boss started, everything was starting to get real small and tight. And I actually went to Germany with them and talked to some of the merchandise managers. And I'm like, you just alienated a huge portion of my clientele. And I would have, people come in. We sold a lot of professional athletes. And my salespeople were on commission, and they'd have someone come in and they couldn't sell them because they couldn't fit them. And I was like, there's got to be another way. So I established this business, Bespoke Company, and it was really, I can't be all things to all people, but I want to have something for everyone. I want to have someone that comes in that has a love of a particular fabric that I can turn into something, a garment for them. And it's pretty cool. And we make a lot of people pretty happy. And just seeing the smiles on people was a far cry from where we were, disappointing people because I couldn't fit them.
Right.
So I always love that. And I'm a fixer. I always try, I get criticized for this at home, but I'm always trying to make things right. And it's like, I don't necessarily need your opinion. I just want you to listen. And I'm not I'm a listener, but I like to, I like to fix. I like to alter. And, so more of a perfectionist. So that's kind of the
That's great.
evolution.
I love it. Well, this has been so informative and just great information for our listeners, because I feel like whether you're going to a job interview, you're, going into the office, or you're going to a social event in the evening, looking
There's
your
also
best
those that
is
go
always-
to a different industry that have been working for some time and had a work, and now
Right.
they'll ask me, or I have guys that are in the military and then they become civilian and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been wearing a uniform. What the heck do I do? So sorry to interrupt, but it's very true. That's a big change, lifestyle change and professional change, and people are lost and are not quite sure.
That's a great point. I was in the medical industry before I switched over to staffing, so I wore scrubs every day. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a whole new wardrobe because I don't have any clothes other than scrubs. And then,
I've done custom scrubs too.
Have you?
Yeah, we've done a lot of interesting projects.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love, do you mind if we mention this really quick too? Like you were talking about earlier, how you used to make like the custom clothing for all the wrestlers back in the day.
Yeah, so years ago when I first started this business, we had a little tailor shop, and I basically sold my soul every day to try to, make ends meet and grow into something. And so we did lots of little projects. So I had some professional wrestlers that came in, and then, other guys got word, and it really grew, but it was making it's more costumes than their work attire.
Right.
But lots of like athletic 4-way stretch and cleverly sewn and cool colors, interesting personality, and some real characters. But it's true. And we live in Tampa, so Gasparilla is a huge thing. So I make Gasparilla costumes
I didn't know
for
that.
pirates and wenches and all of those things. So I typically will do those special projects more for established clients. And then I have some local tailors that do our finishing work that I'll refer people out to. But that's and I have some clients that like really very specific costumes that are like Hollywood style costumes that are pretty spectacular. So yeah, we and that's not my everyday thing, but drips and drabs, we do things like that, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it looks cool on my social media.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you're having the gala again but that's not until 2024 in
Correct.
February.
Yeah, last year, Hurricane Ian pushed us out into February. We were doing an event at the end of September, early October, and by accident, we found that February, it's going to be February 2nd, Groundhog's Day. So it's that Friday. But it's just, there's less competition with events. The weather is a little more predictable. But it's cool. We partnered last year with the American Cancer Society, and we're working with them again this year, which is, just such a great cause. And they do some great things for our community. Brett, my business partner, and I actually toured a facility of theirs the other day. And a lot of people in Tampa don't know that this exists. It's kind of like their version of Ronald McDonald House, but on Moffitt's Cancer Center's property is a building that houses for free people, some less fortunate people, but I think it's open to anyone that makes a reservation. But people that have someone in the family that is getting cancer treatment can stay at this facility.
Oh, I didn't know that they had that. Is that with their brand new building, or is
it's 20 years old?
Oh,
but they've been giving it a little facelift, and donations and events like mine that can bring some money and support to it is helping them to grow. And this year we're actually, with some of our upper level sponsorships, we have some naming rights so that you can have your business or personal name on a plaque by a room. So that's kind of cool to get a little bit of recognition for your generosity.
Right.
So the event is really cool. We have some of our professional athlete clients and local celebrities that model in a fashion show that you've seen. And it started as a bourbon tasting years ago. I think it was 2015, and there were 35 people there. And now I think this year we're going to have about 600 people. So it's amazing the evolution that it's had. But it's a great way for us to showcase some of the cool things that we do and just have a nice night out. Right. It is a charity event, and I do that because we couldn't do it with the amount of people that we have any longer just on our own. So it's really nice to partner with a local charity and give something back to the community too.
Steph and I have been coming for how many years now?
For a while.
It's
always one of my favorite events.
Oh, always.
Does it get better every year? See,
last year we saw brand new faces that have never been to that event. So I can only imagine.
Yeah. It's so hard because I want to, these are all the people that I love and I want to spend time with it, but it's impossible. It's like a big wedding. And it's so hard, but I love that everyone comes and I see pictures after and I'm like, oh my gosh, you were there. But everyone's having a good time, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely
raising money for charity, having a great night out.
Right.
It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll include the link to your website.
Oh, cool.
And I'm assuming that the gala information is on there.
Yeah. So we're updating the website. I'll give you our social media links, which is, we have a great team that keeps me current. I'm not the most efficient in technology. So so we're image driven, so it's really good for us to have good social media, but I'll definitely have some announcements, and we're working through some things. But anyone that is interested, we typically seek sponsorship from our clients and those that support our business, but we'd love to meet some new folks as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll make sure to include that. And again, thank you so much, David. This was so much fun. And
of course.
So interesting and informative. So please like, rate, subscribe. And until next time,
live bold and boss up.